I would like to introduce our guest this evening, Anastasia Tilston. Now, Anastasia is the director of the Arts Centre in Chester. She's kindly agreed to join us this evening and to talk about the introduction of pop-up galleries within Chester, and also is this a way to actually rejuvenate the high street in this present situation we've got. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce my friend Anastasia, and if you want to ask her a question, if you could please use the chat and I will ask questions at the end for you. So all over to you, Anastasia.
Thank you, David. And hello once again, everybody. I can only see David, but I've seen a few people earlier. Like I said, I'm on my phone, so it's not probably the best option. But thank you very much for inviting me tonight. And yes, I'm actually going to talk about something rather positive. So like David said, I run Chester Arts Centre on Northgate Street. And well, we're all about art and creativity and yeah, all things nice, basically. So at the moment, the good thing that is finally happening in Chester is the introduction of pop-up galleries. And to begin with, I'll just say a few words on how it all started. It started in 2018, before the Queen's visit, when the Queen was coming to Story House. And they were driving on Northgate Street, and there were lots of empty shops on Northgate Street. So we were basically asked to make them look presentable and put some paintings in the windows. And so we did. And it was wonderful. It was fantastic. It was a brilliant experience. And everybody was really happy until they charged us the rates. So at that point, as a business, unfortunately, we thought, well, we just can't afford to do it anymore. Because, well, we just can't afford it. So unfortunately, we had to stop for a while. However, a group of enthusiasts decided that they were going to form a community interest company and basically take over empty business premises and give them to artists, performers, musicians to rejuvenate the high street. And that's exactly what happened. So Place for the Arts in Chester was formed, and we as Chester Arts Centre, we're managing the premises, we're finding artists, we're sort of redecorating the places to make them a bit gallery-like, and yeah, looking after all the day-to-day running of the temporary galleries. So at the moment, we've got two pop-ups. One is on number 4 Bridge Street, right by the cross, and the other one opened this week, and it's on number 47 Northgate Street, right opposite the Story House, which is great and wonderful. And yeah, well, that's what we're doing. We've got 6 artists in each of the galleries, and they all work in different mediums. They do different things, and when I say art, I don't mean just art like paintings. We've got ceramics, we've got jewelry designers, photographers, people who work with glass. So basically there are things that you will find on Christmas markets, little gifts and things that you can use for home, and all lovely, handmade, fantastic items. So that's what we're doing. It's been a very long journey. And the idea, well, like I said, first originated in 2018, and it took place for the arts in Chester quite a long time to actually get going. Because things are not as easy as we'd like them to be, because we try to think about things logically. Well, there's an empty shop, nobody's using it. Why can't we have it for a month? But it's not always like that, unfortunately. So in all honesty, with COVID and everything, I did not think it would even be possible. But then all of a sudden, these two happened. And we were very pleased, we were very shocked, and we had to do everything last minute. But it's been fun. It's been fun. So yeah, our topic is bringing art to the high street and its importance in our communities. Thank you, David. I had to write it down so I don't forget. And what I'd like to say, well, firstly, I actually start all my creativity seminars with that question, like, why is art actually important? Why is it a good thing? And usually people don't really know what to say. So it's like, well, depends. And we get a lot of that at Chester Art Centre. For example, if we're having a preview for the new exhibition and there'll be people outside looking through the window and we invite them to come in, have a glass of Prosecco, we've got the artist here, have a chat. And people go, oh no, no, I don't really know anything about art, I don't really understand it. No, they sort of shy away. But I always say that you don't really need to know anything about art in order to appreciate it or not appreciate it. It's very simple. You either like it or you don't. It makes you feel something or it doesn't. It makes you think something or it doesn't. And what does it make you think of? That's all it is. And the problem we've got is probably got a lot to do with the modern art and all the conceptual ideas behind modern art, where people really don't know what to make of it. And they think that in order to understand art, you have to really know things, you have to read books and see like the hidden deeper meanings behind that tint of blue. And if I don't know those things, then, well, I'm going to just feel silly and I'd rather not go, I'd rather not get involved. And that's what we at Chester Art Centre always try to discourage, like, no, it's fine. It's fine not to know. Come in and have a look. And it's not always about just buying things, because artists also want feedback, and we only work with artists who are here, who are present, and the pop-ups are run by the artists themselves. So when people come in, they can actually talk to them. They can bring their kids and ask, oh, how did you do that? And why is this? And why is that? And I think it's a very healthy thing. It's a very healthy human interaction. It's a positive thing to do, because what we're finding, especially now, I mean, the state of our high street, I'm not going to go into that. It has been bad for a while, but it's getting worse with all the COVID and everything. It's just, it's frightening. It's actually really terrifying, because businesses are going out of business. And you can see tourists who come to Chester, for example, and sometimes they'll walk in, oh, Chester Art Centre, they'll have a look and say, oh, what else can we do? Where else can we go? What's open? And when you think about it, not many things are. I mean, you've got shops, your regular shops, we've got coffee places and certain restaurants, but there's not much to do, really. So with the pop-ups, we're trying to give that something else to people so they can just come in and even just have a look. It's not all about buying. However, it's nice to sell things, don't take me wrong, it's fantastic. And for artists, it always feels wonderful, because there's been that painting, for example, they've been working on for a month, and then somebody's prepared to give them money for it. And it's a really nice thing, especially if you're trying to make a living out of it. But at the same time, it's also wonderful when people actually care, because that's what artists are about. They're not doing it just for themselves, they're doing it for others. They want to bring something to the world. And I'm speaking from a perspective of a practicing artist myself. It's nice when you do something to make the world a tiny bit better, just a little bit. And yeah, it's the appreciation. So that's what we're doing with the pop-ups. It's nice when people come in, they have a look and say, you know what, I really like that. I can't afford it, but I really like that. I think you've done a great job. It's nice. It makes you want to do more. So I always encourage everybody to go and see the art, go and talk to the artists, even if you don't intend on buying anything, just go and have a look. Go and get some ideas. And like I said in the beginning, we're not only talking about high art and, you know, pictures on the walls. There's lots of different stuff. And I mean, hand knitted scarves are art. art is everywhere. Our architecture is art. I don't know, our cushions are art, our clothing, the shape of our glasses, that's design, that's all art. And even our garden is still art, that landscape design. So we find art absolutely everywhere. We just don't always recognize it as art. So with Place for the Arts in Chester and with Chester Art Centre, we always try to bring that understanding to people that, guys, it's actually more than just a pretty picture on the wall. It's everywhere, and there's always a designer or somebody who's created that pattern on our shirt. So it's really nice to see those people at work, because when we go to regular galleries, for example, usually there'll be somebody sitting at the desk. It's all nice and clean and neat, and we have wonderful pictures on the walls. It's fine. We don't get a chance to talk to the artists behind the scenes. Here we do. So I think it's a very good thing, because, well, it's helping the high street. It definitely is, because it's good for neighboring businesses as well, like number 4 Bridge Street, for example. That used to be the oldest optician in Chester. That's now closed down, and there's a wonderful shoe shop next door. But until we moved in, they had 2 empty shops next door to them. They didn't like it. They were very pleased when, okay, there's another business, so there's more reason for people to go and have a look. It's not just like you're stuck in the middle of an empty street and you don't get any footfall. So it's good for the overall well-being of the city, I think. And the idea is to have quite a few of them, because unfortunately for the city, we've got a lot of empty business premises. Fortunately for artists, they're there. So usually artists can't afford to be seen on High Street because it's expensive. And if even temporarily they can take over and just be there and show their work, sell their work, talk to people, get some feedback, that's great. That's a win-win. The original idea was to introduce performances and music and all those things as well. But now with COVID, we don't really know what's happening with that. So that's been put on hold. But it's still in the pipeline. So if it becomes possible, we really want to do it. Because I know there's an opera company that do traveling performances, and they always perform in very random, strange places, like old bunkers, abandoned churches in the middle of a field. And I'm thinking, well, we've got really big places that are not being used. Well, until they did something with the library, that was empty for God knows how long. I know the visual arts guys were doing exhibitions then now and again, but not all the time. So that was empty. That would have been a perfect place. So that's the idea. Anyway, we're working on all of that. And we're very ambitious. Well, I am anyway. So I'm thinking, well, you know, it's really difficult now for everybody. I mean, very hard, very strange, very unusual times. What good can we make of it? And I thought, well, if we've got all the empty business premises, well, if we fill them all with art, for example, and performance and poets and interesting stuff, that will give people a reason to travel to Chester. So that will bring tourists here, that will bring people who live outside Chester and never venture in here just because they don't need to. They've got Cheshire Oaks for their shopping and a lovely local pub to go for a meal to. They don't need to come to High Street. It might encourage them. It might encourage more footfall. And I don't know, to hell with it, let's say for the City of Culture. I don't know. So yes, there's a lot going on, and
that's great, Anastasia. That is fantastic. You've almost answered one of the questions which I've got in front of me here, and it's from well, it says Peter Rossetti, but he's not around, and so it's from Lisa, and she says, I really agree that we need to make the city centre and high streets more social than just shop, shop, shop. You've mentioned some of the ideas that you have and other plans to get people engaged with art. But what are your plans for the next 12 months or 18 months to get people, the social events in the gallery, or as you were talking about, have you got any actual ideas which you're working on at present?
Well, we've got plenty of ideas, and unfortunately there are only so many of us to execute them. Well, at the moment it's all a bit up in the air, like I said, because nobody really knows what's happening, and it's been very difficult getting premises. However, now we've started, now we've got to, it always happens that way. It's easier to show the landlords what it could be like. So when they see that, okay, they've turned the old share shop into an art gallery, that's quite cool, they might be, well, more enthusiastic about doing something in their place. So we've had a lot of people getting in touch, a lot of artists, a lot of performers actually asking, well, if we want to put a performance on, what can we do? And unfortunately, I can't answer those questions at the moment in terms of the performances because of all the social distancing regulations, and we haven't really got the space for it. However, if and when the space becomes available, then we can immediately get in touch with people who had ideas and say, guys, anything you could do with this place, for example, because a lot depends on the building. And it's really funny how we see with number 4, which is a really small and quaint shop, and people go for small and quaint things in there, whereby in the old share shop opposite Story House, where you've got big windows, people tend to come and look at art more than little things. So the buildings actually regulate what could be done there, and we always form teams based on the premises. We think, okay, what could work in here and what couldn't? So it is the same with performances, and it's the same with music. We know a lot of local musicians who are wonderful and brilliant, and it would be great to have an open mic, for example, and just something simple like that to get it going. But at the moment we can't, because, well, we're just tied really, and hopefully this bloody thing will go away soon, and and we can actually
that's great. There's a couple of other things as well which lead on, of course, that all leads on to all this, is that one of the things which Anne has asked herself is that how can people find out about these pop-up galleries? Where are they, and who's in them? And also, have you considered actually advertising in Chester Information Centre?
Right, a wonderful question. Thank you very much for asking. Yes, we do have a website which is called placefortheart.co.uk. No, I'm lying, Place for Art. I got rid of that domain, scrap that, sorry. Too many websites. Placeforart.co.uk, all the information is on there. I still need to add all the bios and photos of our artists, but the brief is there with all the links and the addresses and the pictures of the shops, so you can go and find them. We've thought about doing like a map. Well, of course, we thought, okay, we're going to have 10 shops and we'll do a map and we can direct people like a trail. But because everything is on temporary basis, we basically don't know when they're going to kick us out. They have to give us 2 weeks notice. I'm talking about landlords. So if they decide to sell, or if a new tenant appears, that's it. We have to clear out within 2 weeks. So it's very difficult to plan and to advertise in that respect. With the information centre, yes, for that purpose we do need some kind of leaflets. I know they don't take posters, because I was trying to give them one. They don't take posters, which is okay, but yes, we'll need to do that. We had an article in the Standard about the first one, and we have been shared on social media. So it started happening, but there's a lot of marketing that needs to be done, and well, Cheshire Marketing promised to help, so we're keeping fingers crossed that that will actually happen. And in the meantime, we just keep telling everybody and doing newsletters and posting it on Instagram, Facebook, and just, yeah.
All over, yeah. The other thing is that interesting question here is about having an installation artist that you'd be able to watch something evolving day by day in the shop window.
That would be a fantastic idea, and we're all for it. The only problem with it is that with installations, the artists can't really sell it. So they would be prepared to do it if they had free time and spare time and an available window. So that is something we're planning to talk to the council about, actually, because they've got a program about empty windows, and with certain shops the landlords might not be prepared to let the public in there, but if there's one person working in the window and doing something, then that would be okay, because again, landlords can be very particular, and that's fine. So definitely on the list at the moment. Again, because everything's last minute, we had to form the teams from the people who were available right now and who are dedicated, because the way it's run by the artists, so at least one day a week they have to be available to be there and look after the whole thing, and act as a salesperson basically if anybody wants to purchase. And some people are not available, some people just can't commit, which is totally understandable. Some people are still shielding, and yes, it's all a bit uncertain, but definitely because installations and there's also a lot of video projects and fantastic light installations that people do. It's just they have to be available and they have to be prepared to do it. So because Place for the Arts in Chester is a non-profit organisation, eventually, hopefully, when they have a bit of money, they'll be able to pay somebody to do it, which would be nice, because we always encourage the artists to create, but at the same time, I think that everything has to be paid for, and even if it's a little bit, even if it's like busking for tips, it still has to be something. So
the interesting thing about the actual pop-up gallery on Bridge Street, which is the first one you opened, I do know a couple of people are actually working downstairs on some of the art as well. Would people be able to come in and look at them? Certainly there's a silversmith there who's been doing some work, and I think also another artist there who's done some work as well. Would you be advertising people to come in and watch what they're doing?
Well, if the artists are prepared, then absolutely. We'd have to tidy it up a bit more, but of course. And I know James, our silversmith, he's actually thinking of teaching classes down there. But again, we need to figure out how to do it with social distancing and everything. So yes, definitely. And probably we will have more in the second one, which is Place 2, number 47. Northgate Street, because there are 2 floors upstairs which we haven't really utilized, but they could be used as studios for people just to work and create a mess and just go crazy, because they're big rooms and it's okay. Nobody really cares if there's paint on the walls because everything's going to be stripped down.
The interesting thing about these pop-up galleries which you've been talking about is that you've got to deal with the landlords. And the landlords, I presume, set a rent, and they can throw you out after give you notice for 2 weeks. But the other thing is, very, very seriously, is that is not the ideal situation in some ways. Have you been in contact with the council, and Can the council help you with some of the buildings which they own?
We have spoken to the council because, well, myself and Mike Garrett, who's the chairman of Place for the Arts in Chester, we belong to the Visual Arts Forum in Chester, where we all meet either physically or now on Zoom, and we talk about all things arty and what can be done, and we discuss everything. So yes, we have spoken to the council, and they do have buildings. They also have plans for the buildings sometimes. And yes, it has been an option. I know they've worked closely with the university, and the university opened a pop-up in the shopping centre, the market, on the way to the market. So that's a really beautiful big place, and they started earlier this year, and then of course COVID had to happen, so at the moment everything's closed. And when working with the council, they're wonderful guys. Everything is done by the book, and you have to plan everything in advance. So yes, the negotiations have taken place and will yet again, but it's just taking time with private land.